Quick update, we're aiming for about 11:05 for start time. Thank you very much.
Good morning. I have one. As long as you printed it, I'll take it.
Morning.
I can scribble on it. My artwork.
You all good recording? Yeah. All right, I think almost everybody's in. I think we're ready to get started. We got a physical quorum for sure. So the time being, what time is it?
And we need to use microphones, so I don't think I'm going deaf.
Yeah, this microphone is just not,
Better than
Maybe the other
Berman.
one.
Hey, Berman.
Hold on.
Maybe he can be better than you.
Hello, hello, hello. This one works. There's a little lag.
Here's my agenda.
No, I can't have that one.
You're supposed to picture.
That's right.
Did you get one from me? Stu?
Yep.
How long are you gonna be gone?
Thank you.
It's.
Okay. Mr. Ford, when I announce, you might not know, but when I announce who is attending remotely, do I do that before roll call or after? Do you know offhand? Okay, I'm just gonna, yeah, that's what
I do.
we'll do roll call and then I'll announce who's remote. So, all right, the time now being 11:07, May 24th, 2023. I'd like to call this meeting to order of Kane County's American Rescue Plan Committee. Clerk, please call roll for attendance.
Kenyon,
Yes.
Bates,
Bates here.
Gums,
Gums here.
Leonard,
Leonard here.
Molina,
Molina remote.
Strothman,
Strathman here.
Surges,
Burgess here.
Tepe,
Dumpy here.
and Sanchez.
Sanchez present. And members Gums and Molina did inform us in the appropriate way that they would be attending remotely and the reasons why. So if there are no objections to that, we will move on to the next part of our meeting, which is approval of the minutes. If I could,
I would ask for unanimous consent.
Mr. Kenyon asked for unanimous consent to approve the minutes of April 26th, 2023. Any objections? Hearing none, the minutes are approved. Public comment. Is there anyone here in person or online who wishes to deliver public comment? I know we have at least one. Ms. McNamee, if you can approach the podium, state your name and yeah, you can just adjust that as you have to.
It's pretty high up. All right. Good afternoon, everyone. I think it was morning before. You guys are heading towards afternoon with the time, right? Eileen McNamee with Pads of Elgin. Haven't been here in a while, mostly just trying to get staffing up and getting some planning in the works for where we need to go right now with our shelter in the future. So you all know we have a congregate shelter, meaning everybody is sleeping next to each other. Even with COVID restrictions lifted, they're not lifted for congregate shelters. People still need to be 6 square feet apart. So we still have the same restrictions that we had before. We have not lightened our wait list whatsoever. Right now, we have about 45 people, it depending upon how many families we have who can sleep closer together. We can go up to maybe 60. That's it. Our waiting list consists always of at least 2 to 5 families. We are prioritizing families and veterans, but then it also, we have 40 individuals trying to get in and 40 previous guests. So our wait list is always still almost 100 people all the time. The biggest issue, and you guys all know this, is that we only have 0.57% availability of housing in King County. The issue with that is that even though our guests, about 68 to 70% of the obviously people of over 18, because the rest are in school, work. They do work jobs, and it doesn't matter even if they made enough money, there's no available housing to get them out of our shelter and housed. It's very far and few between. Rapid Rehousing is doing a great job through Kane County and the curriculum and the continuum of care, but there is just not enough affordable housing out there. Additionally, the restrictions set in is that you need to make at least 3 times the rent in your wages They're pretty strict on that. And they're also asking for a credit score and basing on your credit score what your down payment's going to be, your security deposit. So we have a really rough time getting everybody in and out of shelter. I just wanted to give you a general awareness of where we are. In addition, we need to get a building, and we need more than just one building. So we are looking at a building right now that we are hoping we can get. No, I'm not going to tell you where it is. We're going to be really careful with our NIMBY. We're going to be really careful with our zoning. We're going to be really careful with everything we need to do. But hopefully on this building, we're going to be able to put in about 10 to 12 units of permanent supportive housing. We are going to move from a congregate shelter over to a non-congregate shelter, which is really the best way to get people, back on their feet and to be able to get more people into the shelter because they will be separated by walls. We're probably going to have 1.5 to 2 floors of just non-congregate shelter and then our offices. In addition to that, we really need to find, and this is mostly for the Elgin area, they need a winter shelter. So they do not have one coming up in the winter. So we are also, as a provider, are looking into having a winter shelter that we would keep open from October 1st till the end of March. And we would have it open 24/7. It would not be, weather restricted. And the reason for that is that you want to have trained personnel that can work that and keep the shifts going, because you can't have people on call in case, because there's just too much going on in everybody in the world. In addition to that, we can get people who are in tent cities or on the street or rurally sleeping out there to get them into somewhere, providing them a warm place to be and to give them some time to really feel safe, be able to do laundry, shower, eat, and sleep in a nice, warm, secure area. Anyway, just wanted to bring you up to date on those notes. We are looking obviously for funding to go forward to doing all of this. On the horizon, we have 2 other projects we're trying to work on. We're trying to do a land lease to build another whole permanent structure of 50 permanent supportive housing units. And then we have 2 other pieces of property we're currently working on to try and get to build to have it donated. And then we're going to build our affordable housing units, and we're going to do it commingled. Right now, our highest populations we've had 135% increase in children in shelter, which obviously none of us want to see that. There's a lot of things that go along with that and that will last for life with them. And then we've had a 50% increase in people over 55. So we would do a senior/family housing units of affordable housing. So we are trying to move forward, doing everything we can. Our need is great. And I do also want to say our waiting list is about 100 people that are always on our list. But that's not the chronically homeless. The chronically homeless just in the Elgin area alone, even though the PIC count says about 40 people, it's really about 150 people who are out in the streets living in other places. And we're not talking couch surfing. We're not even hitting couch surfing. And in the northern area of Kane County, in the Carpentersville and the Dundees, they have a huge uptick in people hitting the food pantries and that are also experiencing homelessness. We drop off supplies for Fish Food Pantry, but it is everywhere and there's no housing. So it's really a crisis in hand. You guys have been hearing about this for a while, but I just wanted to give you my State of the Union address after a few months and bring you guys up to speed. So I thank you very much for your time and I hope you have a great day. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. McNamee. I encourage you all to reach out to her and have conversations about the state of homelessness in the area, in the county, especially in the central and northern parts. And it's surprising how much homelessness is experienced in the rural areas. You wouldn't think so much out there it would be an issue, and it is. So thank you, Ms. McNamee, for being here. Any other public comments at this time? I don't see anyone in person, anyone online. Okay, we'll move on. Discussion items, program manager update, Mr. Phillips.
Morning, everyone. Peter Phillips, King County American Rescue Plan Program Manager. We have a somewhat brief update. So if we could have the program update slide, did we get that? There we go. Outstanding. Thank you, Blair. To page 2, the community support grants status for tranche 2. The next page there, Blair. There we go. So today we have, and this number, I think is the top number is same as last month, 21 fully dispersed community support grants. We have 12 partially dispersed, which are those grants that have the larger grants, the big 6 mental health that have multiple disbursements that are in the process. Of those, we have 2 packets in the process for the AP cycle, and those are Ecker Center has an additional disbursement coming in National Alliance of Mental Health. I am actually, if we could go, I'm going to jack you up a little. Oh, no, it is in the right. I thought I was going to go out of order. So planning for June, and I'll give you an update in a minute of what we've accomplished recently, but planning for June. And I think everyone knows that I will not be here in June. This is my last committee meeting. But Jenny has been getting up to speed, as we know that she is recently transitioned to join us as a full-time staff. Previous to her transition at the beginning of this month, she worked 20 hours a week, and the majority of that time, as you can appreciate, is dedicated to her recording secretary duties and the agenda work and the meeting, making the meeting minutes available for you. She is still maintaining those responsibilities, but she is moving into the full program coordinator position for ARP. And we've been prepping the last several weeks, as I gave 2 months notice. She and I have spent the last several weeks uploading, transferring knowledge, getting ready for Jenny to be our bridge to our new ultimate program manager. I'm confident that Jenny, though about to get trial by fire a little bit, is well situated for serving the county, and the support, and which I'll mention in a moment, is in place to support Jenny over these next couple of or more weeks. There will be a special meeting that Chairman Sanchez will be having that is involving the Finance Committee and their reconciliation of 2022, FY22, and all the 3 various resolutions that they would have as a result of that. And that is a revenue recoupment calculations, payroll reimbursement calculation, and the prior year recoupment revision. Those may not be the exact titles, but those would be the resolutions that you'll be entertaining. So in the last few weeks, what we have completed, we have completed the first quarter reporting to U.S. Treasury for the first quarter of 23. Those extracts from that portal, I believe, are just close to being certified. So those will be dispersed by way of a link on the ARP SharePoint site. So those are the extracts of all the projects that the county has reported thus far, including obligations and contracts that have not been expended, but those that have been reported to Treasury in those amounts. We have completed the back end that we've been talking to you about, the systems, and that is our submittable grant portal, which we have, through lessons learned with the community support grant, have considerably enhanced that site. And we will be meeting with at least Mr. Roth. If Mr. Sanchez is available, he's welcome to join us today. We'll be going over that portal in detail to explain to him how it works, show him a demo, but it is very user-friendly. We have all of our department projects populated in the system. And it is designed to be a one-stop repository for all documents, messaging, qualifying documents, compliance. So there is a project form of several pages for each department. So that is ready to, the department requests are ready to go in earnest as the committee makes their decisions in that area. That includes, we have standardized forms and templates. We have a built-in messaging system that is enabled to track and catalog all of our communications within the team. And of course, the end result of this is that you will have a complete repository that is not just appropriate, but I'm confident that when potentially audited in 2027, that the county will have be beyond reproach and will be in 100% compliance. Now, to that, I would say that our transition for me, Ernst & Young had taken some great care to assist in things of importance that they thought that should be covered and that will be covered in the next couple of days before I leave. Unfortunately, I've still had our nose to the grindstone. So while we've been preparing, we've still also been preparing these resolutions you'll be looking at today and some other work, continuing to work with the 501c3 community and the department heads. So with that, I would say that it's been a pleasure for me to work for the county. I leave, I believe, on good terms. I certainly have no complaints. It's absolutely a challenging job. And one thing I had learned that many of you may not know, that I came here from the private sector, and the government, working in government is a different animal. And I've developed a great appreciation for the staff of Kane County, the department heads, many of whom's departments reflect their tenaciousness and their personalities. And as I've been here at the county, you know, we did not have a department. We're an ad hoc committee, but I received so much support from, I hesitate to say names, but there are specific people like Erica Wagner, Amy Raymer Holmes, all the folks in IT, certainly Mark Van Kerkhoff and his team where I've been officed have been wonderful to work with, and all of you as well. But I'd like to say a special thank you to Madam Chair, Mr. Sanchez, and though he's not here with us any longer on the board any longer, Dave Brown, who interviewed me. And, you know, I was on disability for a number of years before COVID, and due to cancer. I've been living with cancer since 2010, and I've been on and off a disability. And I was on one of my disability jaunts when COVID came. So I was high risk and I had to shut down. So it was actually several years before I had worked. And I had not worked in government. And the county knew that, and they took a chance on me, and Mr. Sanchez supported me in many ways. And some of it emotional, supporting me in that what is a transition that a lot of people go through that is very difficult. And without the right support and personal relationships, I'm quite positive that I would not be in a position I am today, which is, I believe, back in the game, a vital citizen. My family has been affected in innumerable ways. You know, you have a family member that spends the majority of their day in bed, recovering from surgeries and cancer treatments, you know, chemotherapy and radiation. And I know there are a lot of people in the county that quietly go through that themselves. And it's very difficult to do, but with wonderful people, my life has been enhanced. It's been very difficult, and I make a life decision to make this move for myself, to reassess, because I am a different person today than I was 18 months ago when I came here. And I admit that a lot of that has to do with me and my fortitude, but more than that, it has a lot to do with these organizations, 501c3s. Some 26 years ago, I was fresh out of the military. It had a very difficult transition. I found myself in Chicago. Well, I departed for the military in Chicago, and my mother lived there, so I came to Chicago, and within a few years, I found myself on a lockdown rehab. Substance abuse, mostly alcohol, mainly alcohol. And my family had no resources. I come from a broken home, and so I was supported by halfway houses and sober living communities that made it economical, and I had no money, but made it economical and feasible for me to exist in that community, but also participate in my own development and growth. And the tools and support that I received from our non-for-profit organizations, whether they be out here, and I have been affected by the ones out here, are unbelievable. And I know that we hear often about the current needs, the people, homelessness, food shelters. And it's current, it's in front of us, and we say we need to help these people now. And rarely do we see, and I'm not at the risk of speaking about myself, I'm an example of years later what those organizations can do, that they exist and that they help folks like me. And it's been my honor to work since I've been here. And I'm very proud of the fact that the county chose, with the ARPA money, to first focus on the community. And that we have really ramping up and actually winding down the community support grant program. There are some other agencies that you're looking at that I'm happy with that. The work ahead for the department programs is it's going to be hard, and Jenny's going to have her nose to the grindstone along with the new person that comes in. But frankly, I'm just had to be honest with myself. I'm not up to it. I went through a situation like that last year where we were high pressed, and my health failed a little bit, and my doctors were a little concerned, but we pressed through. Mr. Sanchez made that possible by making some reasonable accommodations for me. And I could do it again, but I'm a year older, and frankly, my wife would prefer I not. So with that, I thank you. And I look forward to monitoring and watching how you guys continue to help the communities. And I'm going to be of support to Jenny and whomever comes in as needed. We'll work that out. And that is my update. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Phillips, for all the work you've done for us. It's been tremendous coming into chaotic situation of a moving train that still isn't being done being built yet, and holding it all together. So really appreciate that.
Thank you, Jarrett.
Any questions or comments from Mr. Phillips? All right, thank you for that. Next up, revenue recoupment projects. So as we've gone through our assessments of projects, the department requests that we've gotten in, there are some that initially look like we're going to go in one direction that was easy to fund with ARPA money. But now, after we've learned everything our team has learned about compliance and eligibility, we have some projects that can only be funded through revenue recoupment money or payroll reimbursement. So if you guys recall, and I'm sorry, I'm not prepared today with a slideshow or anything, but we have revenue recoupment and payroll reimbursement. There are two things that once we claim them, there aren't many restrictions on. Payroll reimbursement has no restrictions. And that's our COVID savings fund. If you guys are aware of that, the finance committee. So these projects here, and some that we're currently assessing that are new outside of our department requests, are ones that can only be funded, as far as we can tell, through revenue recoupment money or payroll reimbursement, if we're going to fund them. So we determined as a board a spending plan last year that said any of this money, this revenue recoupment, payroll reimbursement that we get in, I think we had a certain dollar amount that we were going to assign for budgetary purposes, filling in budget gaps. Now, I've never been a fan of that idea. I understand the interest in using that type of quote reserve money for filling the budget, but it essentially just prolongs the inevitable conversation of what to do when that money runs out. I know we're discussing potentially not using any reserves for our budget this year in our budget policies. So we have to first, as this committee and as a board, reevaluate how we want to use the revenue recoupment and payroll reimbursement money. If we want to fund all of these projects, we're most certainly going to have to dip into that money. There's no way around that. If we want to only fund a certain amount, then we'll have to go through a process to check certain things off the list and say, here, we'll fund this one, but not that one for whatever reasons we may have. I just want you all to start thinking about that in the back of your mind. Are you comfortable not reallocating, but essentially reallocating those monies away from budgetary purposes and putting them towards projects? If we're not, as a board, willing to do that, these projects here will not be able to be funded, just so that everybody is aware of that. Things like, well, you see the clerk's office, voting machines, building management, they have a large request there for facilities needs, environmental water resources, many projects there, IT as well. So that being said, we do have one project on today's agenda that we've determined is important. We approved it as a board, as a committee first, and as a board, water resources, and it's going to have to be funded through revenue recoupment money or payroll reimbursement. It's time sensitive, so we do have to pass this today if we're going to authorize this project, and we have Ms. Wolnick here that can explain the need for the project and the urgency. One of the projects for environmental water resources that we've already approved and that work is being done on can only be funded by revenue recoupment money. We thought initially it had an eligibility category, but upon further research, it's not. So already we have one project in play that we have to fund, that we have to pay for, that is going to have to come from that. Ms. Bates.
So water was one of the main categories in the original ARPA Act, right? But this
Yes.
does not,
But that's like the heading subject is water. When you open that up and see the subheadings under there, it's like, well, does it meet this standard? Does it meet that standard? Does it have this attached to it? Is it a capital component? You know, there's the whole checklist that our team at Ernst & Young has now,
okay.
where they can assess all these projects and determine, okay, with everything we've learned now, we know it's
not
a water
fit.
project, but it doesn't fit in the pipeline that is allowable under ARPA,
Oops.
so to speak. So
Okay.
yeah, and this is very complicated stuff to assess projects. Going to the Treasury's guidance and federal grant compliance guidelines. I mean, it is not an easy one night of legal research type of thing. It's very involved with many members of our team. Mr. Phillips, you wanted to add to that?
Yeah, if you don't mind. One of the components of the final rule, one of the directives of the final rule is that as ARP monies are being assessed, that or municipalities also simultaneously assess other potential funding sources that would be more appropriate. And it is possible that the IIJA, the Infrastructure Jobs and Act, that I believe we now have a lobbyist that may be investigating, may very well be the appropriate funding sources in the eyes of the Treasury for some of these, particularly water, but it is an option.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's something we have to investigate. But in the meantime, at the very least, we have the one project that has to be funded through revenue recoupment that's already underway. And then we have this other one today that we'll talk about that I'm recommending we should pass. But again, it's dipping into that pile of money that we have essentially said we're using for another purpose. So
What other purpose was
for
that?
budgetary purposes, for filling the budget gap.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what we have in our spending plan, essentially. Madam Chair.
Thank you. Thank you for the update. As you know, I've been a great advocate. Strong
Could you bring the
advocate-
microphone up a little?
Is
Yeah,
that better?
That
You
is
can hear me
better.
now?
Thank you.
Thank you. I've been a strong advocate and speaking with Ms. Walnick regarding our water resources. And we just passed having a consultant in finance for economic development. If we don't have enough water here in Kane County to have a documented study on how much water can sustain growth, and I'm not talking about immediate growth, but long-term growth, then we have no control of what we can provide for Kane County's residents. The worst thing in the world we want is to be able to turn on the water faucet at your home or at your office and have no water.
Dust come out.
I don't want us to be turning into the controls that is in Phoenix, Arizona right now because of strong growth, et cetera. So we know the issue of this. And I'm not quite sure how to resolve this financially, whether or not we take it out of reserves or whether we find other grant opportunities. But we have to get at least knowledge of how much water we have. If we go down into the deep aquifers, from what I've learned, it is filled with radium, borium, and that can be taken out. But again, that is a high expense and it takes
Thousands.
lifetimes, dinosaur lifetimes, to get the water back into the deep aquifers. And it is finite. We don't have an unending river of water that comes through these areas. So whatever we need to do, of course, with Ms. Walnick's advice and her knowledge and her team's knowledge, we have to move this forward. It's critical. It's like saying we don't have enough oxygen to breathe.
And we'll talk more about that when we have that resolution up, but
Right.
I just wanted everybody to understand, we'll have more information coming forward so we can kind of really assess all the moving parts because there are so many moving parts with a program like this. But going forward, we are going to have to start having that conversation in earnest about what we're going to fund, what we're not going to fund, and how we really want to utilize the money that we get with ARPA savings and revenue recoupment. So any other questions or comments on this before we move on? Okay. Other committee matters, there is something I wasn't sure if I wanted to put it as a full update because the investments, we had talked about the investment side of the ARPA money and creating a schedule so that we can maximize investments. And we do have an initial schedule put together, but in discussions with finance, because they needed more time to work on the numbers for revenue recoupment and payroll reimbursement, we wanted to wait until we start launching into any further investments because we need the final numbers from them to know how much is coming out of the total fund. Initial estimates are about 14.5 million. So once we have those final numbers, we can take that out of what is being considered for potential investments, and then we can move on from there and work with our schedule as we have it. So once we have that more finalized, I can send that out to everyone if anyone's interested. It is kind of the boring, just financial stuff, but people like to see that stuff too. So yeah, it's nice to see. It's good to see. So yeah, once we have more, and there are a couple of department projects where we're still waiting on some numbers. They needed more time and we understood, but in general, over the next month, we should have a good schedule and be working closely with Treasurer Lawson's office to get those funds into something that will make us a little money while it's just sitting there. So anybody have any questions at this time before we go on to resolutions? Is there anything committee related that anybody has questions on? I know I haven't been able to reach out to many of you lately. I've been a bit busy myself, but Madam Bates.
Thank you. I don't know if this is the right time to ask this question or to make this comment, but I would like to consider using the recoupment money for these for all of those projects that you had there listed there. The ones that cannot be used, you cannot use the other money.
Okay.
Other funds.
Anything else that anyone has they'd like to bring up this time before we move on to resolutions? Madam Chair?
Yes, one comment. And I don't know if you're going to be able to speak about this. And I know you have met with our clerk. Apparently, and I see we've got a request for voting machines here. He has shared with me and with you as well that the voting machines currently are over 10 years old and some of the parts on the machines are not. He can't even salvage old parts because they're not salvageable anymore. It's very hard to come by. So he has a request that he has shared with Mr. Sanchez for some potential new machines. Will County just purchased similar machines, and that was $7.1 million for those. I believe this request here is $3 million. So I'd like to throw that on the table as well, because we've had a lot of conversation about voter integrity, making sure that our vote count is accurate, appropriate. So that should be something that we should take a look at so that we make sure that going forward, whether if we use the old machines for next year's very important election and we phase in the new ones, or if we start buying the new ones now, that they're set up for both the primary as a test, do a beta test, and then as well as for the full general election.
Yeah, I just had that conversation with Clerk Cunningham yesterday, so I don't want to get too far ahead of where he's at, but he does have a new quote in, and it's a few million lower than he originally thought it was going to be. And if we're going to fund it, the simplest route would be to use some of the ARPA money as far as payroll reimbursement or revenue recoupment goes. But that's a lot that we still have to figure out. So again, we're going to develop a chart with all of the things that can be some of these other requests that are coming in that can only be funded through this way. And then once that's finalized, we'll distribute that and we'll all start talking about what we're going to do with that money. Okay. All right, let's move on to new business. We have 3 resolutions. First, approving invoices from Ernst & Young LLP for professional services rendered from February 1st, 2023 to February 28th, 2023. I'll entertain a motion and a second for this.
Kenyon so
resolution.
moves.
Kenyon moves. Anybody else like to second the motion?
Leonard seconds.
Any questions on this? This is a standard monthly invoice for consultant. Mr. Leonard?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm just wondering, what have we spent so far with Ernst & Young year to date?
I don't
Lot.
have a year-to-date
A lot.
total. Do you, is the,
I do. I'm sorry that I neglected to provide that for the agenda. I will send that out immediately after this afternoon. I'll send out that contract management worksheet.
okay, yeah, I didn't double check, but yeah. Any other questions? Clerk, please call the roll.
Kenyon,
Yes.
Bates,
Bates, yes.
Gums,
Gums, yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Molina,
Molina, yes.
Strothman, Surges,
Yes.
Tepe,
Deputy President.
and Sanchez.
Sanchez, yes. Next one, authorizing the use of state and local fiscal recovery funds to fund the drainage cost share consultant and capital project for the Kane County Environmental and Water Resources Department. Bates moves,
Deputy seconds.
Pepe seconds. Ms. Walnick is here. Would you please come up to the podium and sort of describe this project to us? And I know there is a bit of urgency as well. on
Yes,
this.
certainly. Thank you for the time. And if we could maybe back up to the possible unfunded
Yeah.
through the 2 water projects that the chairwoman mentioned. Those are currently under contract with Illinois State Water Survey and the work is underway. So there's invoices being generated. So I just want to make sure the committee was aware of that as well. And in addition to that, 8-page description was developed by the state's attorney's office, justifying those projects under the regular program, not having to go to the revenue recoupment. And so there's that consideration that Ernst & Young is saying they're possibly not applicable to that regular program, but there's some wiggle room in there because they are justified through a very well-written document from the state's attorney's office. So I just want to make sure that the committee was clarified on that in that regards and knew where those projects exactly were at. The current request, as I understand, is applicable to the standard program. It's not required under the revenue recoupment program for our cost share drainage. It is capital projects for the construction of storm sewer systems. And so that clearly falls, jump in here if I'm speaking incorrectly. I believe you mentioned it was not applicable under the standard program, but I believe it is. Yes. Leaning that way. Okay.
Things have been shifting with
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
We did
Yes,
ask Ernst & Young
It
to
is
sort of reassess.
infrastructure, so it
So-
does fall very clearly under the infrastructure
Yeah.
requirements. Our cost share drainage program is a program that was established in 1993 by the county board to assist residents in unincorporated Kane County in small subdivisions as well as small municipalities, assist with flooding and drainage issues that they're having. We have many projects that have been waiting for funding that are not able to be funded with the riverboat funds because that fund is being depleted and those numbers have come down. So we have some of these bigger projects that have clear need and urgency to assist these residents in our unincorporated areas. And so this program would kind of fill in the gaps for the larger projects that we aren't able to complete under the regular cost share drainage program and allow us to rectify those longstanding drainage issues for our residents.
Yeah, so I did misspeak then. I was just based on my understanding. This isn't revenue recoupment. We think we've got an EC for it, so we're good. But there are some that have been approved. Still, that is still true. That is revenue recoupment only. So for this one, is there any question? Are there any questions for Ms. Wolnick? Okay. Pretty easy for you then. All right. Hearing no other questions or comments, clerk, please call the roll.
Kenyon,
Yes.
Bates,
Bates, yes.
Gums,
Gums, yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Molina,
Molina, yes.
Rothman absent, Surges,
Surges, yes.
Tepi,
Deputy, yes.
and Sanchez.
Sanchez, yes. Okay, the next and final resolution for today, authorizing the execution of a grant agreement with Northern Illinois Food Bank with funding allocated from state and local fiscal recovery funds. I'll entertain a motion and a second for this resolution.
Deputy moves.
Tepi moves,
Kenyon would
Gums
second.
will second.
Kenyon seconds, but Gums notable third. This is another essentially an expansion of previous support in our community support grant program. We made an allocation for food pantries. And I would do it again in a heartbeat. I think it was the right decision to make. As we go forward now, we learned that a lot of the smaller grants tend to come with a lot of administrative costs, which we did know up front, but it was worth it for that initial program. What we're looking for now are larger chunks of money to go out to provide relief. And Northern Illinois Food Bank has maintained communication with us and the needs that are facing food pantries in this whole county. COVID has, the emergency is over, but the effects still exist. And they're seeing, as Ms. McNamee stated, even up north in Carpentersville, just record numbers of people going to food pantries and looking for other types of assistance. So in working with Northern Illinois Food Bank, we determined the best way to fund food pantries going forward would be to just utilize one type of umbrella organization, which they are, rather than trying to part it out to all of the food pantries in the county. So this isn't going to fund Northern Illinois Food Bank's administrative team, executive team. This is all for food purchases. Over the next, I believe, 3 years, is it? Yeah, Blair, can you scroll down a little bit? Yeah.
Thank you.
So hopefully you've had time to look this over. We do have Hester Berry from Northern Illinois Food Bank who is here. If you have any questions for them on this, she'd be happy to answer those for you. But other than that, are there any questions anyone has? Madam Chair?
Just clarification. I'm reading the resolution now, and it says that it's going to be $2.5 million, but this trunket is going to be 450,000.
Pardon me?
Well, I'm reading summary.
Mr. Phillips, is you?
The resolution is to allocate $2.5 million
Mhm.
to be distributed to the Northern Illinois Food Bank as a grant for food purchase to be distributed to Kane County member agencies. But the appropriation amount for this resolution is 450,000.
Oh, I believe that is just because that is the amount we have to transfer into the fund to fulfill the total grant. Is that correct, Mr.?
Yes,
Phillips?
that is the amount that we anticipate that Northern Illinois Food Bank will submit for reimbursement during this next for the remainder of the fiscal year. So that just shows the funds funding that accounting line that we set up for transferring for that payment. If I may have used the wrong terminology for that, but yes, so that is their anticipated 2023 ask. So that's what that is. That's the amount of their 2.5 million that will go out this year.
Okay. Mr. Phillips? or I'm sorry, some, I'm talking to
I
you.
think there's
Mr.
some,
Leonard.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You know, I understand this. I have no problem with it. What I do have a concern with is what is the total amount that we have now allocated to external sources through the ARPA money,
External sources.
external?
Well, we have the community support grant program
a lot.
The
Yeah.
support grant,
and
Just
enough.
wondering
Yeah.
the amount.
not enough.
A lot,
less than
not
10
enough.
million at this point.
How many?
Including CASA, a little over 8 million.
Well, CASA is not external.
No, they are.
Yes, they are.
They're, yeah, they're not a county organ.
I didn't
entity.
realize that.
Mhm.
It's a
We just work
quasi-
closely with them. So when they walk around, people think they're us, but no.
What did CASA get?
A
million. Yeah.
So about 7 million external.
Not enough.
Not enough.
Yes, you're correct. It's about a 7. We'll get a sharpened pencil and get that information. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Well, it'll come out to you today.
Thank you.
Mhm.
And if I may, I would just like to recognize the Northern Illinois Food Bank for their 40th anniversary.
Well, happy birthday.
Roth, you had a question?
And it's related, Roth here, Madam Chair's question. The overall we've allocated was 2.5 million, and this year we're just given the 450 is answering your question, I think.
And is this, just for memory, is this the first allocation or the second allocation?
This is separate from the community support grant program.
No, out of the 2.5.
This would be the first.
The first of the two.
We're just authorizing it at this point.
That's what I thought.
Yeah. Yes, just state your name and your case.
Hester Berry, Northern Illinois Food Bank. Thank you so much for considering this resolution. I just wanted to give you a couple of quick points. With the $68,000 that we received in the community support funding, we were able to distribute 74,000 pounds of food to 24 member agencies across Kane County. In the last 4 months since January, we have served over 60,000 individuals every month, an average of 60,000 individuals each month. That's a 23% increase over 2022 average monthly numbers. And this is due, as I'm sure you all understand, to continued inflation that is affecting food and living costs, the decrease in SNAP benefits, and continued instability and unemployment for people that are working part-time jobs, never knowing how many hours they're going to get really impacts their income. And we believe that this is still an impact of the pandemic. So our request for 2.5 million over 3 years will allow us to purchase approximately 2.5 million pounds of food and will ensure access for all member agencies in Kane County. You are absolutely correct. We will spend all the funding on food. There will be no administrative costs allocated to this funding grant. We will cover all administration with our unrestricted funding. And I just want to thank you for your consideration. It is vital that we support our member agencies and provide as much food as we can for our neighbors that are struggling with food insecurity. Thank you. Happy to take any other questions.
Any other questions or comments on this resolution? Okay,
For everything you do.
all right. Clerk, please call the roll.
Kenyon,
Yes.
Bates,
Bates, yes.
Gums,
Gums, yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Molina,
Molina, yes.
Strathman absent, Surges,
Burgess, yes.
Tubby,
Yes.
and Sanchez.
Sanchez, yes. Okay, nothing for old business unless Mr. Surges has something for old business or just
Mr. Sanchez, if I can, you know what? So many times people ask us why we get involved here at the county board and my patent answer is because we try and make a difference. And so many of these meetings just become minutia and entrenched in legal jargon. And then you come to this meeting and you have Miss McNamee and the food pantry and Peter, who has the courage to tell his story. And these are the people making the difference day in and day out on the front line. And Eileen, I have told you 1,000 times, if you need anything, just reach out because I mean, where the rubber meets the road is here. I thought it was maybe here. I missed, but thank you for all you do and we greatly appreciate it. Young man, truly spectacular. Thank you. All the best.
Little different on this committee sometimes. I don't mind that.
And if you don't mind, I actually
Mhm.
was remiss. I unfortunately forgot to mention the state's attorney's office and the effect they have had. And Steve Ford and Vince Coyle, their input and guidance in this program, it may not be self-evident, but I believe it will play itself out. They assist in setting a tone. And I think if you read our documents and particularly the last several resolutions that have come through, they have taken critical thought in ensuring that those documents are read consistently and they tell our story. And our story of compliance really resides in those documents. And I know that Steve has, with intent and the county in mind, thought about how our resolutions are written. And though we complete those resolutions, his writing and his critical thinking related to this, and I'm sure everything else he does for the county is, I found just very impressive. So I neglected to mention those two guys.
Well, they're so close to us. You
Yeah,
forget that,
yeah.
you know.
And Jenny, of course. Sorry.
All right, we have no need for executive session. I just need a motion from Mr. Kenyon.
I move we adjourn on a day well spent, Mr.
Yes,
Sturgis.
a day well
Got it.
spent.
At before noon as well. Second on this motion.
There, but Mr. Berman, see how it's done?
Leonard seconds. All those in favor say aye.
Yep.
Those opposed,